changing my voice. Before we get into Matthew 23 and how it connects to John 10, I'd like to point out that part of how you know that I'm right is that I'm persecuted. In Matthew 5:10, it says, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." So that's Matthew 5. People aren't persecuted. People who have a church to go to preach and teach, okay, are not from heaven, they're from hell. And it is just like the Pharisees and the Jews who were arguing with Jesus in John 10. Okay, so Matthew 23, a warning against hypocrisy. We're going to see that this chapter is very much about the spirit versus the flesh, righteousness versus mere human rules. Okay, that the righteous person makes a place sacred, makes a place important, and not the mere inventors, not people who made technology, not the politicians, the military, or the police, but the righteous person. Not entertainers, okay? And it's pretty straightforward. So, Matthew 23. Then Jesus said to the crowd and to his disciples, "The teachers of the law and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So you must be careful to do everything they tell you. That is, everything that is righteous, right? So if they say you must be loyal to God, be loyal to God. Okay? You must do the right thing, you must do the right thing. So you got to do what's righteous anyway. Okay? Now listen carefully. What comes next? It says, "But do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach." So if they said, "Do what we do," you're not supposed to do it, right? So it doesn't matter that they sit in Moses' seat. If they tell them specifically to do something that God doesn't want them to do, they're not supposed to do it. They're not supposed to be sexually immoral. They're not supposed to lie about God. They're not supposed to persecute the righteous. You get it. They tie heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on other people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. Everything they do is done for people to see, right? Government, ment meaning mind, like in the word mentality, and mental. So they're doing things for psychological effect, for the psychological effect, okay? And that is not God's way. They make their phylacteries wide and the tassels on their garments long. They love the place of honor at banquets and the most important seats in the synagogues, okay? They love to try to pretend that they're above Christ, me, the anointed one. Okay, we'll get to that. You'll see definitively that I'm right about that. They love to be greeted with respect in marketplaces and to be called rabbi by others. But you are not to be called rabbi, for you have one teacher and you are all brothers. And do not call anyone on earth father, for you have one Father and he is in heaven. Nor are you to be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Messiah. That is me. The greatest among you will be your servant. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. You see, God set me apart. This is what John 10 was saying when he said, how much more the one God set apart? See, God testified as a witness to Christ by making him a certain way. He set him apart as the most righteous, right? Focused moral intensity. He set him apart as capable of being righteous in a way that is like miraculous, right? Focused moral intensity, universal pinpointing moral precision. Okay? And that is, the offspring of David, who faced Goliath with moral outrage, righteous indignation, moral intensity. Okay. So when he says, for those who exalt themselves, what does he mean? He means people like in martial arts schools, people in the church, presidents, people who assume a position of authority that I have not authorized. Okay? So they're going to be humbled, right? And we see it to some degree, the signs of it in the long term in this world, right? Presidents are made fun of. They have no viable counter-argument. Okay? Law enforcement is mocked. The military is mocked. Harold and Kumar and so on and so forth. Okay? People are mocking people who pretend to be important, and they have no divine argument to defend themselves with, so they just get played out on their way to eternal punishment. Now for the heart of the chapter. 7 woes on the teachers of the law and the Pharisees. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You yourselves do not enter, nor will you let those who enter who are trying to. Okay, so he says they close the door, right? I'm the gate. They're preventing people from obeying God through me. And that's what he's saying to them. He's saying he's the gate, he's the way, the truth, and life. He's the door. The gate, the door. And he's saying they're preventing them from entering. And they themselves don't enter. They're illegitimate. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites, you travel over land and sea to win a single convert. And when you have succeeded, you make them twice as much a child of hell as you are. So as they sit in the seat, they're the children of the devil. That's part of why you're not supposed to do what they do. If they say obey God, you're supposed to obey God. Because they're putting on a show where they pretend to be of God. Okay, one way to remember Set is Set. Set is the name for the devil in Egypt, right? So Set and Set, a set. You know, the word Set scrambled. And Set is the Egyptian equivalent of Baal, and Zeus is the Greek equivalent, and Jupiter is the Roman equivalent. Okay. So he says, woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites, you travel over land and sea to win a single convert. And when you have succeeded, you make them twice as much a child of hell as you are. So they travel over the land, right? Which can also symbolize the body, the flesh, because you're made from the dust, right? It's an extension of the land. And the sea, right? You come from water, right? You give birth, right? They break water, and the body is like 60% water. So it symbolizes also the body, okay? And the usage of the body, what is connected to, the spirit that is connected to. So they travel over the body, they travel through the world, they travel in more than one way over land and sea, and they make people the children of the devil. Okay, so they're completely, it's pure evil to obey the church and other people, okay, because they're the children of hell, and you know by their actions. Woe to you, blind guides! You say if anyone swears by the temple, it means nothing, but anyone who swears by the gold of the temple is bound by that oath. You blind fools, which is greater, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? The other day I was discussing this with somebody. I said, you know, Christ chastises people. He says chastise the wicked. They say no. You know, he uses the girl with the stoning as an example. Okay, you know, he says him without sin cast the first stone. Well, I am without sin, and I'm allowed to call you fools. Okay, and there's an order thing. God is greater than the temple, and the temple is greater than the gold. God's spirit is in the temple. Okay, so he says, which is greater, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? You also say if anyone swears by the altar, it means nothing, but anyone who swears by the gift on the altar is bound by that oath. You blind men, which is greater, the gift or the altar that makes the gift sacred? Therefore anyone who swears by the altar swears by it and everything on it, and anyone who swears by the temple swears by it and the one who dwells in it, God. And anyone who swears by heaven swears by God's throne and the one who sits on it, God. So it goes God, temple, gold, and God, altar, gift. It goes God, me, and everyone who obeys God, and then everyone who doesn't, you know, according to their deeds. That is the divine order. Anyone who speaks against it or says we're all equal worships the devil, because it's rebelling against God's order. God made that order sacred. And we also see in 2 Samuel 5, when David takes the fortress of Zion, the city of God, okay, from the Jebusites, who were calling Jerusalem Jebus, until he took it back over and now it's Jerusalem again, right? Okay, and Jerusalem's called the furnace. Okay, it's where people are burning in hell for not obeying the divine order. It's symbolic of burning in hell for not obeying the divine order. We'll get to that in part 2. Almost out of time here. I got limited to 10 minutes. Okay, because the TikTok cuts it off at 10 minutes. Okay. Anyway, just trying to finish this. Okay. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give a tenth of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law: justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. You blind guides, you straight out a gnat, but swallow a camel. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and dish, and then the outside will also be clean. First be righteous, okay? And then your flesh will also be beautiful. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, will look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you're full of hypocrisy and wickedness.